Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. We hope you had a great lunch. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hope you all had a great lunch. If you want, you can share in the chat where you're joining us from, or even what you had for lunch today. What did you go off and enjoy during the lunch plenary session or before that? Welcome, everyone. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes to get started here. Welcome, Mary. Thanks for sharing where you're joining us today. Hi, Lily. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, this afternoon. Today's flying by.
This day really has flown by. It flies by when you're having a lot of fun, right? Always.
Yeah, that's my go-to phrase.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Welcome to those just joining. We still have quite a few joining, so we want to just give them a moment.
Yeah, let's give it maybe one more minute. Welcome, welcome. If you're joining us now.
And if you haven't already, go ahead and post where you're from in the chat.
Awesome.
I didn't see any lunch items posted, Brittany.
I didn't either, and I'm really curious. I'm really curious. What everyone eat for lunch today?
I had a breakfast burrito for lunch. That helps.
I had like a one of those steamers, like microwave meals. So
hey, those are key, especially on very busy days. You have a couple of those like in the freezer at work, you're good to go.
There's some really good ones too, I will say. So if you'd like to share what you had for lunch today, go ahead and put that in the chat. We'd love to see. Also where you're coming from too, that would be great to know. We want to welcome you if you're just joining us. We're coffee, there you go.
I'm like you, Veronica. I love my coffee too.
Yep. More tacos. Oh yeah. Awesome. All right, Jen, I'm ready when you are. If you want to screen share, I think we'll probably still continue to have a few join us. Good choice, Annabelle. A nice walk for lunch. That's right up my alley. Good for you. Well, we're so glad everyone is joining us this afternoon. We hope you've had an amazing morning of learning and collaborating and connecting with those in the field. We thank you for joining us this afternoon. And as you can see, if you're in the right place today, if you are joining us for this session on developing an expanded learning opportunities program plan to maximize access for all students. So we're thrilled that you've joined us today this afternoon. There's a lot of amazing workshops and you'll have plenty of access to more of those resources forthcoming. But again, this is our session this afternoon. And so you're in the right place if this is where you intended to be with this slide that you can see here. We did get a lot of questions in the morning session on having access to the slides. So just know that all of the workshop materials will be forthcoming following today's convening. And so on this next slide, you can see here, these are really really our three main goals for this session this afternoon. And first is to just kind of recap and ground ourselves in those basic components of expanded learning. And then from there, we're going to engage in an activity where we're going to unpack and start to look at how to build out your ELOP program plan together, all the while with giving you an opportunity to connect and collaborate with those in the field. Before we get started, though, we do want to remind you that the session is being recorded. So if you have any concerns with that, please feel free to turn your camera off or mute, or just know that this meeting is being recorded. So we appreciate you being aware of that. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues in the field. My name is Brittany May. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning for the County Office of Ed in San Diego. And I'm joined by some amazing colleagues here, and they're going to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Lisa Flowers. I am the county lead for the System of Support for Expanded Learning at the San Diego County Office of Education.
And I'm Jen Taylor. I'm with the Expanded Learning Division at the California Department of Education. I work with the statewide System of Support for Expanded Learning. So our 16 amazing teams across the state of California. And also I'm honored and privileged to work with Region 3, which is Sacramento County and the 9 surrounding counties, supporting programs. And so we wanted to bring into the space the statewide System of Support for Expanded Learning, because this is a current structure of support for expanded learning programs across the state of California. We already have this system that's been in place, and so they are your connection to others within your geographic area. They're your connection to promising practices. They've worked with the quality standards for expanded learning, so a very important resource. So I'm excited here. I get to be with these two amazing ladies, Lisa and Brittany, to co-present on this session. And we also have my colleague Sterling Williams, also from the department, who's been helping us out in the chat and helping us with all the different resources. And so just, excited to really give you all this kind of foundation as we move into really unpacking that program plan. And so what I like to do first is, before we get into some of the content, if you could drop into the chat, how do you feel as far as the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program on a kind of a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being I am totally new. Like we heard from a gentleman today, he found out yesterday he's starting the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, and this is practically his first day. Or 5, you're like, hey, I know this. I could do this session for you. Like I could facilitate it for you. So if you could just drop into the chat, that way it helps us kind of gauge where everybody is at in this space right now. So we'll just take a moment here. Thank you, Lisa, for dropping in the System of Support for Expanded Learning, also known as the SSEL. You know how we love acronyms in education. We're just throwing around acronyms everywhere. So thank you. Okay, see 3s, 1s, 2.5, 2, 1 to 3. I appreciate it. Sometimes I feel like I am a 1, especially when it gets to questions around like, nutrition and, migrant ed. I'm like, that is new to me. So I'm learning different pieces. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, giving us kind of that little pulse check as we dive into the content today. And what we would like to do is really start with, we're in a moment, we're in an opportunity. The COVID pandemic was very disruptive, to everybody, everywhere, and especially for schools everywhere, globally. And, in California, we've really had the opportunity and the advantage to really kind of put together, this moment to take this disruption and turn it into opportunity and really transform schools within California. And expanded learning is part of that, especially the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. We have other initiatives and programs that we are collaborating and coordinating with. You may have attended a workshop with another division within the California Department of Education, or you are have heard from others in the field as far as maybe universal transitional kindergarten or early ed or nutrition. These are all part of the puzzle. These all are coming together to really transform schools. And we're collaborating not just at a statewide level, but also county level and school level, district school level. So really, this is an opportunity to really transform schools and meet the needs of students, especially in this moment of disruption. And so, with that, we'll move to really more of how expanded learning, some of the foundational elements. So some of the basics of expanded learning. And we start to, really with the definition of expanded learning, and, that it's really focused on anything outside of the regular school day. So before school, after school, summer, intersession, anything that complements but does not duplicate the regular school day. And it's really an opportunity to provide hands-on engaging learning for students. So something that the students may not have done during the regular school day, ceramics, potteries, getting very creative, hands-on, that really is their interests, youth-driven, youth-focused. So really, an opportunity for students to kind of drive their learning. These are some of the expanded learning pieces that you may see. And so this definition is critical because it is not just the foundational definition for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. It is also the definition for our other expanded learning programs within the state, for our after-school education and safety program, our 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, so the state and federal programs as well. And so this common definition is throughout all of these different programs. And you may be wondering, well, what is what? There are a lot of, we're hearing about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. We're hearing about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. Where does this kind of fall? And so, we have 2 state-funded programs as of right now. Like I mentioned, we have the After School Education and Safety Program, which is our state-funded program, which has been ongoing, result of Proposition 49. We have our new Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, which we call the ELO-Program. We don't call it ELOP, too close to IHOP. We prefer ELO-Program, result of Assembly Bill 130 funding. So those are our state-funded programs specifically for expanded learning. For our federal funded programs, we have our 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, which is federally funded. And as part of that, there is an elementary middle school component and our teen program, which is known as ASSETS, After School Safety and Enrichment for Teens. And then we have this last square is the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant, which was the result of Assembly Bill 86 funding. And so we kind of put Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant on here. It gets an honorable mention because it can be used for after school, but it can also be used for core day. So there's a lot of confusion. Last year, as part of Assembly Bill 86, the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant was released. It includes 7 strategies for COVID reopening and relief grants, right, for support. And so districts had to submit a plan back in June of 2021 based on these 7 strategies. So this is a separate pot of funding from the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, which is only expanded learning. You cannot use it during the core day. So that's the difference. Today, we're going to talk about some of the basics of the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. We're going to talk about basics around expanded learning requirements. And then we're going to, like Brittany said, we're going to really go into the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Plan and unpack it, give you some time to collaborate and coordinate. So already kind of talked about that. And just to give you also kind of a visual of some of the funding elements of, California expanded learning before we get into those programmatic pieces, you'll see that expanded learning has a big has a large presence in California. We've had a significant amount through ACES and 21st Century as far as funding for expanded learning compared to many states that have only had 21st Century funding, federal funding. And so with the addition of, these other sources such as the ELO grant, but then now on the, the far right column, you'll see the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, which was funded for this current year, 2021, 2022, at 1.75 billion. Huge amount, and projected to grow up to about 5 billion in 2025, 2026. So you can see that California has significantly increased its impact. Even though we've had a significant amount of funding, in these kind of bucket areas, it's not always met the need. So it's really an exciting moment to be able to meet the need of students with this impact and with this additional funding. I do want to mention that the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program is a formula-based program. It goes directly to LEAs. It is not site-based. And I'll talk a little bit more about how, LEAs should be looking at sites based on the requirements in statute. But just want to mention too that it is formula-based. There is not a grant award notification. There are not, a grant application that you complete. So it's a little different formula where the funding is just provided to LEAs directly. So we talked a little bit about, this 1.75 billion, for current year and then growing. We saw in the governor's proposed budget, which was released this year in January 10th of 2022, that the governor is proposing an additional 3.4 billion. So once again, showing this ongoing addition of funding. And, we're not going to get into a lot of the kind of specifics around this. There is the May revision that we are expecting the end of this week from Department of Finance. So just wanted to give you a heads up. There are budget pieces in motion. This is currently the proposal for 22-23 that it is showing ongoing and an increase too of 3.4 billion. So it's, we're seeing this intention behind it that, there's going to be, this is going to be an ongoing program and an ongoing investment for students. So those are different pieces that we're looking forward to. So let's move to some of the programmatic pieces. So the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, also known as the ELO program, it's, provides funding for after school and summer programming for kindergarten, including TK, transitional kindergarten through 6th grade, as defined in the California Education Code section 46120. If you like to read ed code, it's not that lengthy. So, you can check this out. I think a big piece of this is, when we talk about unduplicated pupils, there are specific student groups that are referenced within, the statute for unduplicated pupil. It's a pupil enrolled in a school district or a charter school who is classified as an English learner, eligible for a free or reduced price meal, or as a foster youth. So those are kind of the three specific student groups that are included within the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. And so it's important to really know what your LEA's unduplicated pupil percentage is, because there are specific requirements tied to that unduplicated pupil percentage. And so you'll see there are kind of two bucket areas for LEAs at or above 80%, LEAs below 80%. And it's really linked to the specific offer and provide access elements for whatever kind of bucket you're in. And when we were doing this presentation, I wasn't sure when the FAQ was going to be posted. Luckily, hot off the press, it was posted yesterday evening. So we do have this in writing as far as the offer and provide access. So when we talk about offer, we are talking about, offer in a culturally and linguistically appropriate channel, like communication to students, to families of, the offer of a program. And so we do have that in an FAQ. When we're talking about provide access, be a signed enrollment, form on file from a parent or guardian, or some other, includes other documentation that maybe a family does not want to participate in the program. I think that's another piece that, we had a lot of concerns about. Well, what if they don't? And it's true. And in the statute, it does say the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program is optional. So it is optional. You just need to document that offer and access has been provided, right? So if a parent or guardian opts out, documentation of that would be for the provide access component. So these are, some different pieces you want to keep into account depending on where you are with the offer and provide access element. For those at or above 80%, it does say based upon parent guardian request. For those below 80%, it does say access to 50% of TK K6 enrolled classroom-based unduplicated pupils. So you want to make sure that whatever bucket you're in, you're following those particular requirements. And so moving to some of the operational programming pieces, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program does talk about programming being on school days. So every regular school day in person, so in person before or after school, that when added to the core instructional day are no less than 9 hours of combined instructional time and expanded learning opportunities per instructional day. So the intent is really that it is the core day plus expanded learning equals 9 hours. Okay, so that core day and expanded learning would be then a total of 9 hours. It does include an element for at least 30 non-school days. So during intersessional periods, no less than 9 hours of in-person expanded learning opportunities per day. You'll notice I do say in person, because if you had an ACES or 21st century program, there was some flexibility during COVID time around that, but it is very specific around in-person, kind of moving forward, programming in person. LEAs that operate expanded learning or ELO program can operate before school component, after school, or both, depending on the need. And it can be on, one or multiple school sites. It's an LEA specific requirement. It doesn't say it has to be on a school site. It can be off-site. We do have an FAQ on that now. If you want to reference that. In addition, it also talks about, the LEA shall prioritize services provided at school sites in the lowest income communities as determined by prior year percentages of pupils eligible for free and reduced price meals. So, taking that kind of data into account, also maximizing the number of schools and neighborhoods within Expanded Learning Opportunity Program across attendance areas. So you want to keep those factors in the kind of take that information into account when you're developing your plan and working, with the board and other LEA partners and stakeholders in developing your plan. So moving a little bit more into some of these programming elements, every student is eligible to participate. The focus is, to TKK through 6th grade. I know that we've received questions about, specifically more about charters. So LEA, like a charter, is considered their own LEA if they're able to meet all of those grade spans. So TKK through 6th grade, if they've met that requirement, can you go beyond? And the answer is yes. We do have an FAQ around that. So if the LEA is able to meet the requirement for those specific grade spans, they can go beyond and serve other grade levels. But it's first you need to meet that specific requirement. As far as fees, sliding, family kind of sliding scale based on family income. However, it does refer to the After School Education and Safety Code, ACES code, where it talks about you cannot charge a homeless, foster youth, or a student eligible for free and reduced price meal a fee. So it does call out specific student grade groups for not charging a fee for the ELO program. Outside of that, it would be on that sliding scale. And then lastly, some specific pieces around staffing for ELO programs specifically. It is a 20 to 1 ratio for student staff ratio, except for transitional kindergarten and kindergarten, which is 10 to 1. So you want to keep those things into account as you're, kind of planning out staffing in the coming year, recruitment, and just making sure that you're within those specific ratios for the younger students. Okay. How we doing? No one's having nap time yet, right? We're okay. Just want to double check. I know that this is a lot, but just because we got a lot of the 1s and 2s, want to make sure everybody has kind of a foundational piece as we move along. So let's talk a little bit about expanded learning programming overall. So those other slides were specific to expanded learning opportunities program. These are specific to all of expanded learning programs, ACES 21st and ELO programs. So all of the kind of foundational elements for design too, which you'll see in the program plan. So, at the core of expanded learning, you want to make sure you have these different elements as you're kind of designing, and all of these different elements are tied to the programming and scheduling that you design along with stakeholders, and it will look different. These will look different based on the grade spans too. So educational and literacy elements, so it could be like homework, tutoring assistance in these specific subject areas, educational enrichment element, which could look very different. So maybe for the younger grades, it's more schedule based, whereas middle school, high school youth, it would be more club based or student, youth voice driven, what enrichment would look like. Might be weightlifting for high schoolers, so it could really be based on the need and structured based on that. Snack and or meal. A lot of programs that, operate ACES and 21st, they seek to qualify for, a snack and or meal reimbursement program prior to using grant or, even for ELO program funds to, for operational costs related to snacks and or meal. I know that this was a question in the morning session. We do have, I'll drop a link into the chat to, if you have questions around snacks and meal reimbursement programs, you've not worked with them before, we do have a list of county contacts from our nutrition services division that are willing to work with you to kind of work out what that could look like, and, areas you may qualify for. So we do have that. Staff must meet the minimum qualifications for an instructional aid pursuant to the policies of the school district. So the key piece here is it's pursuant to the policies of the school district. So you want to make sure, so if you're a community-based organization or a provider, that you're working with a specific school district or even multiple school districts, you want to make sure that you're in alignment with the policies of the school districts that you're working with, right, as far as staffing. And maintain that documentation for all staff. That's another piece. I don't think I mentioned this in the last kind of session, but when we do our federal program monitoring reviews, we look at all staff documentation. So you want to make sure that you maintain all of that documentation. All right, so let's move to some more programming pieces. Program plan, reviewed every 3 years, includes program goals, content. It's also written to the quality standards. ACES program plan and ELO program plan are written to the quality standards and includes these elements of program outcome measures. A lot of programs use the California School Dashboard as a way, to measure different outcomes or iReady or different, assessments, summative assessments, different pieces, making sure that, programs are safe, safe physical and emotional environments. That's the first quality standard, or, our main one for making sure that, expanded learning students feel safe and want to attend and want to be there. Staff training, that there's some type of staff training provided, and then integration with regular school days. So making sure that there's connection with the school site principal, staff, making sure that things are seamless and there's collaboration and connection happening. This helps with alignment, complementing the regular school day, And also it does help with a lot of different policies and procedures that really kind of create that seamless transition from core day to expanded learning as well. So different pieces that are part of programming. And then lastly, as far as programming, I think I talked a little bit about community collaboration, but including all different stakeholders, community partners out there, including them, bringing them into the space for connection, providing feedback, even on developing the program plan, giving students chances for physical activity, opportunities for physical activity, that they have their snack, their meal, give them that time to get it out, run around, and kind of structured physical activity, fiscal accountability, and program management, making sure that, there's tracking pieces put into place for fiscal, as well as just for future auditing. So these are all kind of core elements to really follow. And then finally, quality program improvement process, which we also call CQI, our continuous quality improvement process. And that's really goes to the foundation of, we aspire to have quality. We have quality standards for expanded learning, which Lisa's going to really kind of dive into. I'm sorry, I think it was Brittany. Brittany's going to dive in. Sorry, Brittany. Brittany's going to dive into. And then we're going to, those are the elements also within the program plan. So you design the program based on the quality standards. And then there is a data-driven process to assess how you're doing, right? So to continuously improve on how you're doing. So these are all the main elements for expanded learning programming. And I know it's a lot. We're going to give you time to connect soon, I promise. But we just wanted to make sure everyone had this foundation. And then I mentioned before, I told you there's a budget process going on. It does mention the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. It does connect to some of the compliance pieces that we see. And we just want to acknowledge that that's there. We don't want to go into the weeds today to go on it. We want to focus on the basic elements and the program plan. But we do have this available for you as a resource after. And the program plan itself, before we get into some of the unpacking and quality standards, I already talked about it being reviewed every 3 years, but we do want to say there is a rumor going around that there is a due date, and that is not true. There is not a due date for the program plan. It does need to be approved by the LEA's governing board in a public meeting and posted on the LEA's webpage. However, there is not a specific due date to the department on this. There is not a due date. It is going to your governing board. We do want to mention too that you likely want to get it approved by your board before you implement, though, because you never know, a board may change like things within the plan and then you're stuck if you've been spending. So we do encourage getting that approved prior to implementation. So with that, let's wake everybody up with a Mentimeter.
Jen,
let me stop sharing.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. I'm getting a lot back. There we go. You did a great job of really sharing that foundational piece. We're going to do a little bit of engagement now, check your understanding of what we've shared so far. And so on your screen now in front of you, you can see a question, and we are going to ask you to participate with us in somewhat of a quick, like a pop quiz. So if you've not used Mentimeter before, it's a great engagement tool, but you can grab your cell phone or open up another tab in your browser and you can go to menti.com. You can see that at the top of the slide, menti.com, and you're going to enter that code that you see, 6493-4788. And once you enter that, you're going to see this question pop up with the answer choices, and the results will start to appear live on the slide. And I shared with the first group this morning, there's no fear of wrong answers here. Your name is not attached. So whatever you submit, it's okay. It's a safe space. So which of the following statements are true of ELOP? ELOP is ongoing funding that's intended to grow to $5 billion. or the ELO program plan was required last spring. ELOP must be reapplied for each year. ELOP is aligned to 7 supplemental categories. Intent of ELOP is to offer all UPP students in classroom-based instructional programs access to comprehensive after-school and intersession expanded learning opportunities. So go ahead. If you look at the wording closely, which of the following statements are true? So can be more than one, could be none. Let's see, looks like so far the first and final one are taking most of the votes, and both of those are correct. So the blue bar and that final green bar, ELOP is ongoing. It's ongoing funding intended to grow to $5 billion. And the intent is to offer all of our unduplicated pupils access to these comprehensive after-school programs before and after school and intersession, really, if we look at that definition of expanded learning. So great job on this one so far. Let's go on to one more. There we go. True or false? The ELO program plan needs to be approved by the LEA's governing board in a public meeting and posted on the LEA's website. Jen was just talking about that program plan a moment ago. Great job, everyone. That is true. It is true. And I'm sure you heard what Jen said, that there is not a due date, but it does need to follow the steps that are in this true or false question. So awesome job. All right, I'm going to switch my screen sharing over now, and I'm going to jump into talking a little bit more about quality standards. So that last question was about the program plan. If you've looked at the program plan of recent, at that draft template, sorry, not draft, template, I'm doing two things at once, and now I'm getting distracted, trying to find the right screen and misspeaking. Here we go. If you looked at the template for the program plan, then you know that it is closely aligned to the quality standards. And so I'm hopeful that one of our colleagues can drop that link in the chat as well. But those quality standards that we're referring to are really they describe kind of that high level overview of what expanded learning programming should look like. And they describe it at 3 different levels. So the purpose of these quality standards, it's multifaceted, but first it does provide us with a framework of clear expectations on what programming should look like. It also gives us a guide to inform decision-making when we're making decisions on what types of programs to offer to our students, as well as an opportunity to look at them to assess our program quality. They provide us with a guide for students and parents to identify quality programming and also have that common language for students, parents, staff, and leadership, as well as that guide for district leaders to reinforce and advance the key priorities of their after-school programming. And they really provide a complement to the other California standards for quality improvement. Now, there are 2 types of quality standards. So when I think about, if I think about in the instructional lens with the Common Core state standards, I think, okay, you've got your math standards, you've got your ELA standards. Well, if you think about within your quality standards for expanded learning, there are 2 categories in this area. There are point of service standards and there are programmatic standards. Your programmatic standards, those are the ones that are being described on the right side of the slide. And those are really those behind the scene areas that describe the program structure of to help design the program so that forward facing everything is ready to go and implemented. And so those include quality staff. So how are staff members being selected and how are they being supported to provide our students with these expanded learning opportunities? Another programmatic standard is clear vision, mission, and purpose. So what is the mission of after-school programming? How does that align to the overall mission and vision of the district or charter overall? There's next is collaborative partnerships. So you can think about that both outside of the LAA and within. So how are you building those connections with the core day? That's an important piece there within those programmatic pieces. As Jen just spoke about, there's continuous quality improvement. Program management and sustainability is the last programmatic standard. Now, on the other side of things, you have the point of service standards, and your point of service standards really describe what the experiences of students will look like. And so that's first and foremost, safe and supportive environment. That's the first standard. So how are students being supported in a safe and supportive environment? Next is active and engaged learning, then skill building, youth voice and leadership, healthy choices and behaviors, and diversity, access, and equity. So these 12 standards overall make up the full bulk of the quality standards for expanded learning. So what does that look like in action? I know that we've been sharing in the chat the resources to the quality standards, but when we want to actually look at the standards, it's important to look at them in those 3 levels that I mentioned a few minutes ago: the programmatic level, the staff level, and the participant level. So what does a participant experience when we look specifically at, for example, safe and supportive environment? And what does the safe and supportive environment look like at the programmatic level or at the staff level? And so these resources that are built out through the quality standards document itself, and there's additional resources called the crosswalk that can also be a helpful tool for you as you may be deepening your understanding of expanded learning. But if we look specifically at this first standard, safe and supportive environment, when we think about what that looks like in action at that high programmatic level, that behind the scenes, that's looking at the health and safety of students and what are the policies and procedures that are in place to keep students safe. Next, it's the staff level. So how are staff creating that welcoming environment? How are they building relationships with the students that are in their program? Do they have a strengths-based focus? We need to be looking at capitalizing on what are our students doing well? How do we build on these strengths that they're bringing to our after-school programming? That's also high expectations and making sure that staff are updated on those health and safety processes that are being set at the programmatic level. And then finally, when we think about the participant level of this one particular standard, the participants, so our kids, they need to feel like they are a part of a community and they feel like they belong. That's that goal when we think about a safe and supportive environment. And that might involve them co-creating behavioral agreements for what's happening within those after-school programs. So again, this is just one aspect of what it looks like in action when we think about this first quality standard. But there's a lot more. So we encourage you to dig in and really tap into those resources. With that, Lisa's going to take over and she's going to start to tell you a little bit more about where you're going to see those quality standards in the ELO program plan guide and start to unpack that for us and engage in an opportunity to collaborate with your colleagues. So Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brittany. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you, Sterling, for putting the link to the quality standards. If you have not reviewed it, it's a great resource to use as you're planning your ELOP program plans. So here you go. So I'm gonna give you a high overview of what you should find within your ELO program plan guide. And there's a lot to unpack here. I love this visual, right? And so when you open up your ELO program plan, as common, you'll find the introduction and instructions, much of what we've overviewed today. And the questions that are included in there on page 4 through 9 are really aligned to those quality standards, and there's specific questions to each of them where you'll be required, or your LEA will be required to write in narrative form on how you're fulfilling each of those quality standards. And then we go through these general questions. There's 3 general questions. And the first one is if you are from an LEA that currently has any ACES or 21st century funding, then it's in talking about how are we creating one comprehensive program and integrating ELOP with ACES or 21st century, right? And then in addition to that, we know that there's a lot of funding that's also going into UPK. And so what is it that we're doing in ELOP that's ensuring that we have the streamlined approach to supporting our TK students? And then lastly, it'll ask you to provide a sample of a calendar, of a schedule for your ELOP. The last pages on the expanded learning program plan guide basically will walk you through like ed code language. So when Jen was saying, if you have some time and you want to review it, actually it's pretty if you've read ed code before, I think it's pretty short in comparison to other ed code language that I've read in the past. So you might want to take the time to review that as well. And so what we're going to do in unpacking, we're going to give you an opportunity to get with your peers and review a couple of the prompts and rooms, and to have discussions, maybe surface some promising practices for the quality standard that you'll be discussing within your room. And then if any questions come up, you'll have an opportunity to also identify those questions, and then we'll do our best to get to them at least by the end of this session, and if not by the end of this session at a later time. So you're going to receive 2 program plan prompts. You'll have 30 minutes and you'll be staying within the same room. So we'll give you 15 minutes to talk about the first quality standard or the topic of the room that you're in. And then we'll give you the marker for, okay, switch to the next topic. And these are the 2 questions that you want to really dig into while you're in your groups. And we'll ask that you have a note taker. We do have a document where we'll be capturing any notes that you'll all be able to have access to at a later time. And so the 2 questions we're going to ask you to discuss in your rooms is, number 1, what promising practices would you like to share? So for example, we just went through safe and supportive environment. As you're in your rooms, you'll have some discussions on how that might look. And that's if you're within that breakout room for safe and supportive. And then you can include those there in the doc. And then if there's some questions that come up, include those as well. And so I'm going to ask my colleagues to include the link to the breakout rooms in the chat box. And this is what the rooms are essentially going to look like. So for room 1, or if you're in room 8, because we divided them up into 14 different rooms. We wasn't sure how many. We definitely needed the 14 rooms in session 1. I think we had almost 200 individuals in the space. And so what's going to happen is if you end up in room 1, your first 15 minutes, you'll be discussing safe and supportive environment. And then we'll send out a call for the 15-minute mark. And then in the second 15 minutes, you'll be talking about active and engaged learning. What you should see on the doc is that there are bookmarks at the very top of the document. So you could go to the appropriate room, appropriate room to take your notes on the document. So with that, I'm going to ask Jen to open up so we can have our breakout start.
Thanks, Lisa. So yeah, everybody, we have the document for the breakout rooms in the chat. So make sure that you have that. And we'll go ahead, and they're bookmarked too as well within the document. So you have that. And I have the breakout rooms ready. Just because of the number, I think there's only going to be 7 breakout rooms this time around. So we could still follow kind of that, the same quality standard piece with that. So the different prompts. And we'll go ahead, Lisa, could you share that slide again? I think if they could take a picture of the quality standards. I want to make sure. You want to take a picture or something on that of the specific quality standards. If you go back a slide, I think that one right there. Perfect. Yeah, if you want to take a picture of that, just remember what your room number is when you go into your room. I think it's in the top left corner if you're not familiar with Zoom. But we'll go ahead and I think we have about 30 minutes. So 15 on one of the quality standards and then 15 on the second quality standard, right? So we'll split the time and we'll give you some time to connect and collaborate within your teams. And all right, I'll go ahead and open the rooms now. And if you're having any trouble, let us know and we'll try to get you into a room, but everything is random. I'll resume the recording here.
Oh, there you go. Good call.
We have our small but mighty group here that made it through the afternoon.
Yeah.
And unpacked the program plan.
So all the rooms are closed now, Jen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking this out with us. We hope that you were able to have some really great conversations in your rooms and that there's been some promising practices that were surfaced and possibly some questions. You know, we did look on the document to see if there's any questions so that we might take the opportunity to answer them for you. But what I'd like to do is open up the mic for anybody that would like to share anything that surfaced in your room, whether it's a promising practice or a question. So I'm going to be quiet for now. And if you would like to speak, just go ahead and unmute your mic and then and you can share. I'm a former classroom teacher, so my wait time is good. Be patient here.
And if you want, you can just drop it in the chat too, if you like.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen.
Lisa, we see you unmuted.
Yeah, I was going to drop it in the chat, but I'll ask a question or kind of make the statement. I've been a site coordinator for about 20 years, so running after school programs. So the main thing that I was interested in learning today is the structure of the ELO in terms of how it affects the ACES and 21st century programs. And so this is the third session I've been to, and I think I'm starting to understand it. So I think the last session they said you have to follow the grant rules for ACE 21st century first. Primarily, you must meet those grant rules. And I've been doing these quality standards for, we do them on a regular basis as a team. So, but then the ELO kicks in to provide additional financing to provide additional services to kids. Is that correct? Does that sound? Did you hear or no?
No, I think I heard your entire question. So you're
Okay.
asking, so basically the ELO program was written based on the foundation of ACES. So it does refer to the ACES program requirements and is
Right.
foundational.
Right.
There is that aspect though. If you are operating a single comprehensive program with ACES and ELO, you can count ACES, you can count ELO, additional students funded with ELO program towards ACES, attendance.
And vice versa?
So the ELO program does not have attendance.
Oh.
So that's not a requirement. However, if you are operating a single comprehensive program, we recommend that you mirror your policies and procedures that you are doing for ACES with ELO. We do recommend that because, you have an early release policy and different pieces. The families are used to it. And if you're doing it as one single comprehensive program, then everybody is kind of following the same particular requirements.
Even if you've added additional elements to your program. in order to, because you need 80, you know, it's because I think the ELOs, you have to offer to 85%, right? Of K.
So it depends on the LEA, what the particular offer and provide access is, what the LEA's unduplicated pupil percentage is.
Right. But, you know, my district is definitely meets the higher number. So would we need to, and we already, you know, have the ACE, you know, we have numbers that are required for ACES in 21st century for our grants, although they've been waived, you know, since COVID, or they've been not waived, but they're different. But once you add the ELO, do the numbers of your, there's no numbers involved. It's just, the last one I went to, he said it's access and opportunity. So you offer it, and anyone who, especially the unqualified students, need access to it, but it's voluntary. So I'm just kind of curious. It just seems curious the way it integrates with existing after school programs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, so it's, what we want is for expanded learning. If you're operating on the same campus, we don't want the kids to go, oh, well, you're an ACES, you're an ELO program. They're all going to expanded learning. They don't know the fiscal resources behind it, although there, you know, there are requirements for tracking those separately. They're two separate resources, two separate ledgers. You know, it should be kind of seamless, you know, going into the kind of programming pieces. Although, you know, there are attendance requirements for ACES and 21st. However, there's not attendance requirement for ELO program, but we do recommend keeping track of those pieces. We do have, I saw Sterling dropped in, we have an FAQ related to that now around attendance with ELO program, where it talks about, you know, kind of recommendations and encouraging what you should keep track of, especially for student safety. But there are some ways, and I also would recommend you connect with your system of support contact too. I don't know what.
Oh yeah, I know. I will. I mean, I know that I've been doing this for a long time. I just, you know, when I came today, it's interesting to hear more about it, because we really didn't, we hadn't heard that much about it. We're starting now to do it for our summer program. We're going to have after hours, after a full day of summer, during summer school. So we're beginning now.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but does that have to have a separate application? Should the kids have a separate application for the ELO?
You know, that's kind of a local decision.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Conducted. Yeah, it is a local decision, but you know, that we do recommend some documentation of that offer and provide access piece. And if you are going to put it as the same kind of comprehensive program with ACES, it would make sense that there would be alignment in some of those processes. So,
okay. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Learned a lot today.
You sharing. Great, you know, great questions. And, you know, we're all kind of grappling with, you know, some of these, how do we fit these puzzle pieces together? Some of them don't, you know, some of them are great and well matched, and some it's like, okay, we got to talk through it and work through it. And that's why we're here. You know, we're all sharing these different practices. And I do want to share, you get the advantage of being in the second workshop, that you get to see what was done in the first workshop. And there were promising practices shared in the first workshop as well. We had quite a few, we had almost like 200 people within the first one. So there's a lot in the document and in the chat I just dropped. So we do have that. And I know we're at our time now at 2:45, but Sterling did post in there the system of support for expanded learning, which is a huge resource for you as you navigate kind of moving into this realm of implementation of the expanded learning opportunities program. You know, contact your team. They have opportunities where you get to connect with peers as well, like grant manager meetings and different convenings. So definitely reach out to them. And just want to thank you all for being here and, you know, participating. And it's been a long day, a very long, like refreshing day though, to kind of grapple and talk through and share some of these promising practices. And I'll kick it to Lisa to say a
One
couple-
second, Jen, is the FAQ about the attendance part of what is already up?
Yes.
You said there was it's part of this FAQ? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Brand
Thank you
new.
very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you please call the office, Sergio? Please call the office.
Thank you, Lisa, for your question, and Jen for helping to answer that. And I just wanted to show this one last time. This is the web page that where you can access a lot of resources for ELO program. And make sure you do connect with a member of your SL team. We put in the chat box earlier a link that provides the contact information for the team in your region. And we are here to support you. So please do connect with us. I think this is our last slide. And we are so thankful for you for hanging out. Again, for myself, Jen, and Sterling, I don't know if you two want to say a word as well before we close out.
Thank you, and stay tuned for the updates in the app. There's going to be, I think, an evaluation on the entire day, and then a follow-up on workshop materials. And with that, we hope you have a wonderful day.